Hi, I'm Randall. I grew up along the coast of Maine, and that's where my love of the ocean started. I sailed over 10,000 miles in my 20s, and after hanging up my Fowleys, I rediscovered my love of the bicycle. Both cycling and sailing connect me to nature and give me a sense of freedom and adventure. Now, I'm going to try to combine the two. I bought this old sailboat with the goal of sailing it to the Caribbean and then to Europe to do some epic sailing and exploring by bike. But first, I've got to refit and modernize this big old classic. Oh, and I'm on an insanely tight budget, so I'm going to do as much of the work as I can myself while having a little fun along the way. And I hope you come along for the ride. Last time we left off, I had just gotten the boat hauled and was able to open up a wholesale seafood shop with the proceeds of the power washing. You've heard of farm to table? Well, now there's hull to table. The big picture for the next step is to free any connections to the masts so they can be plucked out of the boat easily. For those of you like me who are new to this, I'll go over some standing rigging basics. First off, standing rigging is ropes, cables, or rods that are used to support the mast or masts. The mast is held to the boat by a combination of standing rigging and a little help from gravity. There's also a mast step piece, which is essentially a mated piece that prevents the base of the mast from moving. The base of the mast isn't bolted down, but the mast step is. And the mast usually slides over the base of the mast, and then the standing rigging is tensioned to keep the whole structure rigid. The cables to the side of the mast are called shrouds. There are the lower shrouds that go from the chainplates to the bottom of the spreaders. That's why they're called lowers. On my rig, the main mast has a set of lower shrouds that go forward and a set that goes aft of the mast on both port and starboard. So I have 4 lower shrouds. And then there are the uppers that go from the chain plates to the top of the mast by way of the spreaders. Some spreaders are 90 degrees to the mast and some are swept backwards like my mizzen. We toured a Hunter 40 a while back that had a main mast with spreaders swept back. And that was a design choice by the designer, and the argument was it reduces the number of shrouds and structure needed because it's a little bit stiffer structure. The downside is that they're not as flexible going straight downwind because with the sail out, it hits the spreaders and can chafe. My main has backstays here, and those put tension afterward on the top of the mast. There's the forestay that puts forward tension on the top of the mast, and that also serves to provide structure for a jib to connect to. There's the triadic, which connects the top of the main mast to the top of the mizzen mast, and that's just another way to distribute the load. The mizzen also has running backstays, which is to say they are intended to be moved depending upon the point of sail. If you're running downwind, you can change the anchor location of the base of the running backstays to get them out of the way. On my boat, these are meant to go from here on the transom to here on the tow rail. You'll see coming up in the future how silly of an idea this is, and it's going to require a fix. Both rigs for the main and mizzen have a topping lift, which helps keep the boom elevated when the sail is not deployed, although the topping lift is considered part of the running rigging and not the standing rigging. The big picture is that we need all these various shrouds and stays to support the mast or masts, and they distribute all the various loads that the rig will see. And the loads will be quite dynamic based on the point of sail, the pitch or yaw of the boat, the heel angle. So you really want your standing rigging to be robust. If you're keeping score at home, I've got 12 chain plates. And having looked at a lot of used boats, I can say that chain plates and bedding compound are things you really want to keep an eye on because that's how water gets in and that's how water softens decks or gets into the hull. Having 12 of these and keeping an eye on them is really important, and you'll see an episode coming up in the future where I do take a hard look at all of mine. Just want to take a second and say thank you to our newest Patreon supporters. Without your support, this production just wouldn't be possible, so thanks very much. I think others could benefit from seeing my actual costs, but I don't think I really want to share it with the whole world, so I'm going to be sharing it with our Patreon subscribers, and if you're not into Patreon, shoot me an email through the yachthunting.com website, and I can put you on the email list to get access to it. And if you get something out of it, you can shoot me enough to buy me a coffee, if you like. You can see it's a little chilly out. I am back on the boat. This is part of owning a boat in New England. One day it can be 70 degrees, the next day it's 37. It is day 2 of prepping the boat for winter storage. Taking the booms off, prepping the running rigging and the standing rigging so that it's all secured up. Pretty nice in the sun, not the worst thing. I'll put in a little bit of music and get cranking. So the first order of business is get the tape off of the sharp bits. We put tape around these bits so that we don't catch any sails or lines or flesh on them. On my turnbuckle assemblies, I'm going to take the whole turnbuckle off, both on the chainplate end and on the shroud end. I'm going to disconnect them so that I can just put them in storage and they're not flapping around during transport, and they're not attached to the standing rigging or the masts as they're transported, because they're going to be extra weight to just flop around and ding things up. I'm also going to mark both top and bottom with a Sharpie just so that I know exactly on the threads where the turnbuckles are sitting. And I only have to do that 12 more times. You know, whose idea was it to buy a boat this big? Here's up in the forestay tack area, and all I needed to do here was to get the cotter pin out to prep it for the boatyard rigging crew to tap out the cotter pin just to make it easy for them. So I'll leave it in place so that the structure is still good in the meantime. Next up is to take care of some of the running rigging. So I've got this furling line to just tidy up, and then I've got to look at the mast furling line, which is a little bit more funky because it's a drum system that's totally new to me. So this is the in-mast furling drum. It's a continuous loop, and that goes up through the coaming. It goes through the coaming, then up into the gooseneck here, and then around the drum inside here. So you can see there's a faint green line there. The problem with this is that you can't really get at the drum. When I pull the mast up, you can see that this stuff is all still connected. Basically what I have to do is cut this, tie off the ends so that I can use those as a messenger when I go to refeed the system, and then I'll have to do another splice and replace it come this spring. So I got about one frame on the camera before the battery died. So here's the figure eights in the ends of the line, and the line is cut, and now moving on to getting the boom off. Now the boom is free to be lifted off, so what I did was rig up a halyard to a support strap and then disconnect it at the gooseneck, so that it's basically floating. The topping lift and the halyard are now supporting the boom and ready to just be lowered to the side deck. My batteries died just around that time, which was good because I needed to go actually phone a friend and help me lower this onto the deck. It was not a one-person job. I did phone a friend, my friend Ethan here at Bristol Marine, helped me just get the boom down onto the deck. Much easier with a second pair of hands just to guide it up over sissy bars. So anyway, thanks Ethan. Am I doing boating right? Yep, I'm doing it right. The checklist continues with getting the mizzen boom down, and then I've got to get the mast wedges removed. But in order to get at the wedges, I've got to take off the mast collar that sits at the top of the overhead around the mast. So for those of you that are familiar, what the mast has is these wedges which secure it from wiggling and moving around. You can see that one's coming right out, but I have about 3 or 4 other ones up in this hole that I have to remove just to make things easier for the rigging team to come in and pull the mast. So when they pull the mast, it's got a little bit of play to it. Wedge time. Last but not least, with unstepping the mast, is to disconnect any electrical cables that are going up into the mast. This is new territory. I haven't really dug in to see what is where. This is also on brand for this boat. We've got dead wire coming from somewhere going nowhere. I've got this wire. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that seems about right. Okay. This is the one I just disconnected, and that goes into the mast here. So I've got basically 3 wires coming out of the mast. This one is also on brand and has been snipped. You can see that, so we have no idea where that goes. Probably, oh, we've got one more set here. All right, so I've got, yeah, this is, so I've got 4 cables coming out of the mast, 2 of which are dead and disconnected, so, and no labels. So, I think all I can do is laugh. Oh, there we go. There's another one. This one says Sturm. Anybody else? It's not stern, it's Sturm. Maybe steaming light, but it's not connected and does not go into the mast, so.
They better not have scrambled those wires.
I've just got a mountain of dead wires. So I have 2 that are coming out of the mast that are being used. So I've got this big thick one here, and then I've got this other one here. After a little archaeological digging, I found that it was NMEA 2000, so that's the standard electronics communications interface, and the other one was the UHF antenna lead. Just had to pull those out and make sure those are disconnected and free to move so that the mast could be plucked out. Next up was slightly more complicated, which was the mizzen mast electronics. Okay, so I'm in the aft head, and I've got the mizzen mast is boxed in right here. But then if we go down low, we shall see hopefully 2 wires coming out of it. So we've got one here and one, so one kind of thick round one, and that's coming to this bundle here. So we've got a flat one here that, surprise, surprise, it is not connected. So I wonder why that cockpit light doesn't come on. And now I can trace that back in up here, snakes around my water pressure line here, and then goes back through there. So let's go check out where that goes. So here I am here. Oh, it's right here. Okay. So this is, the cable goes up through here, and then there's an opening here. So back down to my electrical room, aka also known as the Indiana Jones snake pit. And here I am here. So yeah, this connects right to my radar. Oh, nice. I love how that's securely in there. Hey, do we want to tighten down that screw and keep it secure? Nah, we can do that later. It's cool. Just leave it like that, it's fine. Alright, so I'm taking this off. Or am I? So after messing around with the radar wire a little bit, I figured out that I'd have to unplug the 4-pin connector, and I can feed the Ethernet and remaining wire through all the holes and keep that attached to the mizzen mast. So at this point, I thought I was pretty much done, except I wasn't. After talking with the transport company, they said that I was probably over the height restrictions with my granny bars and also my Dodgers, so I had to take those down. And then in order to prep the spars to move, I had to take the spreaders and electronics off just to make sure those things wouldn't get damaged. So just had to button up those few last things, and then I'm actually ready to go. So unfortunately, I missed the key moment when the transport truck showed up to move the boat, but I did manage to shoot a little bit of footage of the same exact type of truck, which was invented nearby in Mattapoisett, Massachusetts. It's called a Brownell hydraulic self-loading boat trailer, and it's a pretty clever invention by Fred Brownell. It's a trailer that has kind of a fork shape to it, and it's got 4 hydraulic pistons that will cradle your boat. It's got an amazingly high weight capacity, so it's perfect for a 30,000 pound boat like mine. And there you have it, on the hard and ready for some big projects to start. Thanks for watching. And again, thanks to our Patreon supporters, because without your support, this show really wouldn't be possible. Thanks very much. Oh, there's flies in here? Ooh.